Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to the Pokemon episode, the Sword and Shield episode. I will not be talking about anything else in this episode, no Destiny 2 or anything, just Pokemon. I will eventually have a video version of this review instead of just an audio version. Let's start the review. To no one's surprise, Pokemon Sword and Shield are a huge hit and success. Nintendo reports that Sword and Shield sold 6 million copies worldwide on the first weekend and 2 million on the first day, even beating Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Nintendo said it's the highest grossing launch of any Pokemon game. There won't be USA sales numbers sometime until December, but we can probably expect those sales to be high as well. Sales of Nintendo Switch, at least in the UK, increased 30% during this time, so people are buying their first Nintendo Switch just to play Pokemon. And the games have a Metacritic score of 81 despite the controversies, such as the National Dex Cut, or what is known as Dexit. I had pre-ordered the double pack and went to the midnight release at GameStop, and the store was packed full of people. There was maybe a small little area where there weren't any people. There's this poster pre-order bonus that is actually very nice. I thought it was just going to be paper, but it was made out of felt, and they did a great job on the design. It shows the Sword and Shield legendary dogs on the front and a map of the Galar region on the back. To get all the bonuses, like the Pikachu and Eevee from Let's Go, I actually did a free trial of Gamefly just to save the game for Let's Go Eevee. I've barely used the Eevee, but I have him. Or her. Don't remember the gender. When I started the game, I couldn't help but remember playing Pokemon Red on a small white and black Game Boy screen when I was 5. And now, I'm 27 years old playing a mainline Pokemon game on a big 4K screen, though the game is still in 1080p, which is a big improvement from the DS games. The graphics look sharp in handheld mode, but when you dock the Switch, some of the graphical imperfections are more noticeable, such as in textures. This isn't a surprise since Game Freak has been making the transition from the DS handheld to the Switch. The adventure in Galar starts off in Postwick, where your friend and rival Hop is the little brother of the region champion Leon. He's another excited Pokemon trainer, but is always meant to be second best and lose to the protagonist. In every single Pokemon game I've played, I always chose the fire type first, no matter what. I guess I think they usually look cooler, and I just enjoy the fire type more. Scorbunny's design is phenomenal, and so are the evolutions. The other ones grew on me as well, but as soon as I saw the starters, I knew who I was picking. It took about 2 hours to reach the wild area and to pick up my Gigantamax Pikachu and Eevee. I also received my Gigantamax Meowth from Mystery Gift when I was at the Pokemon Lab. That Meowth having Slash at the start of the game was pretty nice. And Pikachu's G-Max move that causes paralysis has been helpful in raids, gyms, and championship battles. I used my Pikachu versus Leon's Charizard at the end in the championship match. My Pikachu was underleveled and I really didn't give it Dynamax candies, but Charizard hit it once and got it down under half health. Pikachu hit it and paralyzed it. Next turn, Charizard was paralyzed and Charizard had a little bit of health left. Then Charizard went last due to the paralysis and Pikachu finished him off. Leon was the one battle I just had some of the wrong types and a few underleveled Pokemon in my party, so it was a somewhat clutch victory where I actually had to use one max revive. It was a close and exciting battle. Once I was in the wild area, it was hard to stay away from it in the Dynamax battles. The rare, strong-looking Pokemon are very tempting, and the game just keeps tempting you with them until you have all the badges. I would find myself in a town in the menu looking to see if anyone found any Gigantamax raid battles. It can really prolong the game, so can the weird catch rates in this game. I got in a battle with a Phalanx and probably chucked 15 Ultra Balls at it, got it down to 1 HP, put it to sleep, and it would just come right out of the Ultra Ball. This one battle took over 5 minutes to catch this one Pokemon. Other players have reported similar issues on Reddit, Twitter, regarding the catch rates in the game. There is nothing consistent about them, and it seems like they don't follow a pattern. Sometimes the catch rate just seems random. You can throw a quick ball and catch a Pokemon right away, or you can weaken it and put it to sleep and still may not have caught it yet. And since you have to use a lot of Pokeballs, buy them, and heal your team afterwards, and have to deal with the catch rate randomness, committing to catching a Pokemon or few can really add to the campaign time. Don't get me started about catching G-Max Pokemon or Pokemon in raids. Raids require a significant time investment, and catching the Pokemon is not guaranteed, though players have found ways to cheat the system to get their favorite G-Max Pokemon to spawn, save the game beforehand, and eventually catch them, which still requires a good chunk of time. My campaign time until I beat the champion was about 30 hours, I think. I did do a fair bit of catching, raid battles, voicing lines on stream, taking small breaks. I think if I stayed away from the wild area, the campaign time would have been significantly shortened. But it was an enjoyable campaign nonetheless. Most of the routes feel shorter than some previous Pokemon games. I'm fine with that because the constant trainer battles can get boring, and you kinda just want to move the game forward and get to the next gym anyways. It's nice to never be in one area for too long. The fact that there really wasn't an evil team like Team Rocket in the game also probably shortened the campaign time, but it was refreshing to not have to deal with a group like that. Team Yell were just avid supporters for Marnie, and Rose's company were easy since I had a fire-type starter since they had all steel types. Rose did an evil thing by releasing Eternatus for good reasons, so Galar would have all the energy in like 1,000 years if energy would run out. That fine line of morality was nice for this character to have instead of him just being bad, like in past games where the bad guys did things like, we like to steal Pokemon and make Pokemon do bad things, or we're chasing down a legendary to fulfill our evil goals. BD was a douchey rival, and it is fun to continually win against someone who thinks they are just so incredible and better than everyone else, like Swordward and Shilbert, who were both fun enemies just because of how highly they think of themselves and how lowly they think of others. They were fun characters to hate, though these kinds of people usually think these kinds of things in their head or say it in private, instead of so bluntly and outwardly to people. The main difficulty spike in the game is at Champion Leon, unless you are fairly overleveled, otherwise the game is fairly easy, depending on which Pokemon you have in your party. The gym challenges were interesting. One of my favorite ones might have been the Fire Gym Challenge, where you have to catch Pokemon and get more points than the other trainers. I was using attacks to damage both the opposing Pokemon and the trainer's Pokemon, and the trainer was just straight up attacking my Pokemon, which I found hilarious. The gym battles were fun, excepting the first 3 gyms, since I had Scorbunny, Pikachu, and Colossal. I made sure to plan my team before each match, and it does get a bit more necessary after each gym. I even accidentally planned for the wrong type instead of the fighting gym. I think I planned for fairy instead, and I was still totally okay for an easy win. I never once blacked out in the game or came close to it. The difficulty of the game was definitely on the easier side, at least for an experienced Pokemon trainer, and there are pros and cons of that. The pro is that there are plenty of more difficult games out there that can just prolong things, and because you have the experience share always on for your whole team, whether you catch a Pokemon or battle them, you can just go through the game and enjoy yourself and use whichever Pokemon you want, which I think is necessary to have unless you're the type of person who wants to turn it off. It is nice when a game makes you feel good and just makes you feel awesome, when the real world sometimes doesn't. It's definitely a feel-good game where you are destined to win and be great almost no matter what. But take that attitude in the real world and you'll get crushed. The con is, some people might want a mode that makes the game more difficult, and I feel like there should be one unlocked after beating the game. I think Pokemon could do with a normal mode and then a hard mode for 2 different saves. Despite the National Dex Cut issue where about over half of the Pokemon were not included in the game, it can sometimes be difficult to catch them all, and I do wonder if the reason it can sometimes be difficult to catch a Pokemon is because of the limitation of which Pokemon are in the game. But this time while I was playing, I was very conscientious of who I included in my party and who I didn't. More this time than any other Pokemon game, I was swapping out Pokemon before gyms and certain activities, using more unique Pokemon than usual than I did in past games. If we do more playthroughs, we need to ask ourselves, are we using the same Pokemon, different Pokemon, and why? I do want to talk about some ways the future games can be improved. We've mentioned graphics and adding an additional difficulty and including more Pokemon. I don't think it's necessary to include every single Pokemon. That's a heated point among Pokemon trainers, but there should be other previous starters, legendaries, and mythicals in the game that players can use. Starters like Bulbasaur and Squirtle and other legendaries like Mewtwo are in the game code, but are probably locked behind an in-game event, which seems kind of sad. Unlocking co-op after beating the game would be another cool feature. Perhaps you can do a playthrough, but this time the NPCs have 2 Pokemon for double battles, where they simply let you use an extra Pokemon, like in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. I still think Pokemon should be able to evolve in the middle of battle like in the anime instead of on a separate evolution screen after a battle or event or an evolution trigger. While Pokemon Camp can be cool and fun, seeing all your Pokemon play together and walk over to you to play, Pokemon being able to follow should still be a feature like it was in Let's Go. Who wouldn't want one of their favorite Pokemon to tag along beside them on their adventure? It would also make the Pokemon more realistic if they had their voices like in the anime. I understand this would be a big undertaking with implementing multiple languages, but it would be a nice touch. Others have wanted voices for characters. Personally, this one isn't as much of a big deal for me. As players have mentioned, some Pokemon animations, such as Double Kick, which is represented by a hop, could also be better. Some Pokemon fans want other monster catching games to do well, like Temtem, push the Pokemon series to do better. One thing I do like about Temtem is that the eggs are different and unique based on either the Temtem or the type, whereas all the Pokemon eggs look the same. I really like how in the wild area that the camera can completely rotate. Why not have that throughout the entire Pokemon game? It can make the world feel more realistic from different angles. Ultra Shinies is a cool new feature with a shinier and prettier sparkle animation, but some Pokemon fans thought a different shiny color for an Ultra Shiny would be even better. The character pop-in based on distance can also feel wonky. These are small touches, but enough of them can make a big difference. One reason Pokemon does extra well in sales is because of two different versions with exclusives. Pokemon used to have one ultimate version with everything in one game, but these versions don't sell as well as having two versions, basically getting almost double the cash for the same game. This is why Game Freak no longer has a Yellow, Crystal, Emerald, etc. for the newer Pokemon games. I think this was okay for the handheld games, but for two console games that cost $60, it really is manipulating consumers for some minor game differences. Pokemon fans found their own ways to exploit glitches in the game, like evolving a Malcombi and Salandit, increasing shiny odds for Gmax Pokemon, Gmax farming, easy game money, and more. Of course, there are other ways to exploit the game via a hacked Switch, Homebrew, Checkpoint, and PK Hex. Then one can trade the hacked Pokemon on the hacked Switch to the legit one. Legitimacy checks by the game and Game Freak are still currently unknown. I'll briefly touch on competitive battling, but there are some sets that can be very OP if not planned for. A Dracovish set with Choice Scarf, a Strong Jaw ability, a Jolly Nature to favor speed, and Fishious Friend, which can do a crazy amount of damage and even KO some Pokemon where the move is not very effective against. One could even set up Rain Dance beforehand. As long as you have a speedier Pokemon than this Dracovish, you can usually take it out in 1 or 2 turns. A Corsola set with Eviolite, which raises Corsola's already ridiculous defense stats even higher, Cursed Body to disable a move, Strength Sap to replenish health and lower the target's attack stat, Will-O-Wisp to lower attack and inflict a burn, Whirlpool to do more damage each turn, and Nightshade for consistent damage, with a Bold Nature to raise the defense even higher. The only easy way to take down this Corsola is to use a strong Gmax Ghost Attack or a strong Ghost Attack like a Shadow Ball. Without going into detail, Mimikyu, Dragapult, Darmanitan, Grimmsnarl are also high-tier choices to have on a team, and many more. Personally, I think if the only way to be good is by following strict formulas, it can sometimes take away from the fun. But on the other hand, these Pokemon have been fun to use, and finding ways to counter them can be fun too. Pokemon Sword and Shield also had a broken release date where players got their hands on the game at least a week before the official release, where players streamed it on Twitch, garnering thousands of views since no one else had the game. Also, needless to note, Pokemon Sword and Shield had one of the most heated discussions between fans than any other Pokemon game. The arguments surrounding the makeup of the game felt similar and closer to politics than most gamers are used to. The post-game was short and sweet, but I wish there was still more things to do. But that's where the wild area comes in, a zone specifically designed to bring players back for more. Pokemon Sword and Shield is a solid, fun, enjoyable game. The Dynamax and Gigantamax feature, which I wasn't sure I'd like at first, combines both Z moves and Mega Forms to really mix up the battle and surprise the opponent. The characters are fun and unique, even if they can sometimes be one-dimensional. The environments have their own character to make them interesting. One of my favorite areas was Glimwood Tangle with the glowing mushrooms in the town beyond, which made me sad that these two areas felt so small. And I never get tired of any of the music in the battles, towns, or routes, but maybe just a little bit of the bagpipes in the wild area, as the music really enhances the whole experience and was well done. Toby Fox even helped contribute a catchy song in the game for the Battle Tower. In the future, they should consider including some songs with lyrics, like theme songs that can be included in online battles to listen to. There was one scene where a singer was singing, but there were no lyrics. But most importantly, Pokemon Sword and Shield has the magic and spirit and wonder that the original Pokemon games created. The review score is not as important as what's mentioned in the review itself. If we gave it a 9 or higher, those who want Pokemon to improve would review bomb, but I don't think the game deserves a 9 anyway. And if we gave it a 7, Pokemon fans who love the game wouldn't agree with that score, and I personally wouldn't either. I think Pokemon fans and Game Freak need to meet in the middle, and I'll do the same thing for my review score. Pokemon Sword and Shield gets an 8 out of 10, very similar to the Metacritic review score. In short, it's a thoroughly fun and well-made Pokemon game that captures the essence of Pokemon, and one that puts a smile on my face many times during my Galar adventure. But we know Game Freak, or a game company, could do better. Since Pokemon is such a huge franchise, the game with the new gen had to come out at the same time as the cards, toys, anime, etc. to create synergy. I think for the next Pokemon games, they could really gain a lot from having extra time spent being worked on. I'd even be interested in seeing another company's take on a Pokemon game versus Game Freak's take. If a Pokemon game has to be indeed rushed every year or two by one company, then let another group or company spend the time they need to make the Pokemon games the very best, like no other ever was. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Whatever platform you're using to listen to the podcast, feel free to subscribe and write a review. It really is a big help for everyone involved. You can check out any show notes on our website, gamers-reality.com. Feel free to sign up for the free newsletter there, and you'll receive free stuff from me and be the first to know when I upload a podcast. You can also check out the podcast YouTube channel, Scrimma Games, Gamers Reality, where I stream games, make game reviews, have game thesis episodes, video game motivation episodes, and much more. It's Scrimma Games just for Twitch and Mixer, and also for my Facebook page and Xbox Gaming Tag. You can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Scrimma. And last, if you're enjoying all the content I'm putting out there for the YouTube channel, blog, podcast, and whatnot, please consider becoming a supporter by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Kevin Scrimma. Donating just $1 a month will help cover the costs of keeping things up and running. Doing all of this certainly costs money, such as for hosting platforms, but I have a lot of fun and enjoy giving content to you guys. Simply put, your donations will allow me to make even more content for you guys. Thank you so much for being here with me and listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace.